Hey everyone, welcome back to the sequel in this Delorean fuel accumulator series. In our last video, we tested a cooling fan issue that we found during a test drive, but it turned out to just be a bad connector. An oil change was conducted just in case bad fuel got into the oil because the mixture was too rich. Turned out that wasn't the case. That brought us to the accumulator, which was suspect because when you shut off the engine, the car does not hold any fuel pressure. A kink in the hose and a missing hose clamp right off the bat. But it got stranger from there because once I removed the bracket, I realized that this isn't even the right accumulator for the car. Even though I put the test hose on the back of the accumulator to find out if it is actually failing, and turning on the fuel pump revealed that this accumulator has failed. So I removed it from the car. It shouldn't have been here anyway. The old hoses were also removed. I purchased new hoses to replace them along with new clamps. And that's where we left off from part 1. Let's continue. We'll have a look at the old accumulator side by side with the new one, and we could see that there is a profound difference between these two. I don't know what happened, maybe it was parts availability at the time, but the problem solved itself. So we're going to chalk this up in the vise. 3/4 or 19 works equally bad to remove the next fitting, which is the one here with the bob connector on it. Once I break tension, I could screw it right off with my fingers without any issue. A 17 will remove this 90-degree bend. This also comes off and will be reused. We're done with this old accumulator. It can be drained and go in the shit can. Here we have the new one. Looks like the nipple is slightly bent. I don't know, that may be normal. I'm not tightening this in the vise. I'm just making it so it can rest on the jaws right here. That's it. With a piece of paper towel and some carb cleaner, I checked the face of this fitting. Everything looks good on this fitting, which is good because I didn't order this 90 bend, and this one's okay. So we'll go with it. I'll install it now, and it's only going to be finger tightened. We're not going to cinch this down just yet. After that, I'll put on the new bob fitting. And with the use of 217s, this fitting will be snugged down. Before going any further, I mount the accumulator in the car to make sure that I have my connectors pointing in the right direction. Everything looks good, pointed on that 90-degree angle. I'll take it out now and bring it back to the bench. So I just want to align in a straight line the 90-degree fitting to the center of the other fitting. As I tighten it down, it may drift to the right, and that's fine. I'll just readjust that piece until it's straightened out. Everything here is looking good. Now I'll flip over the accumulator and using the supplied pad, I'll remove the backing and apply it right here at the base, around in a circle. Doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. Just trying to get it as good as possible. And we're ready to install it. The hose to the rear of the car is shorter than the hose to the front of the car, so we'll be working on the rear one first, because it'll be easier that way. I've installed the hose clamp in the desired position, with the screw head in this location. No problem at all to connect this hose to the rear of the accumulator. It pops right on. As I hold the accumulator, I'll reach for that clamp and just slide it down into position. I set it up about 2 millimeters from the end, and with a long screwdriver, I'll tighten it down, but I'll tighten it only so far as I could still twist the accumulator without the hose twisting. And as I tighten it down, I still want it loose enough that with a degree of difficulty, I could still rotate the hose clamp without the hose turning. So I just get that perfect balance. This will make the steps that come later a lot easier to do. Time for a sanity check. Pull that front hose out of the way, installing the accumulator. I'll just get it into position so I could see the bend of the hose in the rear. Make sure it's correct. You remember earlier there was a kink in the hose. It was the wrong size, the wrong accumulator. But now we have a look, and that bend is just perfect. Nothing to adjust. Let's move on. I installed the hose clamp now on the front hose in the desired orientation. I'm considering the reach of the screwdriver or ratchet in the final steps. And now I'll plug this hose right into the bob fitting, right in without issue. I slide that hose clamp up just about there. I'll need to tighten it down just like I did the other one, not too tight so adjustments could still be made, but not too loose that it doesn't flop around everywhere. I do, however, want to get a fitment of this hose, make sure everything's looking okay before I continue. This hose is longer than the one in the back, so there are other considerations to make. So I'll conduct a quick sanity check as I get it onto the bracket. Have a look. Everything seems okay. Since everything looks good and it matched right up to the rigid connection, I'm just going to spin that nut and thread that on there to make our first connection, allowing this to pivot just like that. It's going to be a lot easier to work with now. I'll push it up with a screwdriver so we can have a better view of what's going on. This is exactly where I want to be. Loosely fit, rigid coupler allows that to pivot, and the two hose clamps going into the accumulator are loose enough that we still can get some adjustment out of these hoses. They're not going to kink up. We can make those adjustments. But here they're looking perfect. Nothing to adjust. Fully pushed into position. I have one last look, and at this point I'm ready to install the bracket. Preloading the first bolt-in washer onto the ratchet. I bring the bracket up, put it around the accumulator, and push it up into position where I turn in the first one. First one's going to be the hardest. Then once that one's in, it'll hold everything in place. And I did not tighten down that bolt. Still a lot of slack in there. Allows me to put the other ones in without any issue. Everything is looking great. I also have adequate room to bring these hose clamps into position for the next step. So now I'll carefully install the other 3 bolt-in washers for the bracket. And while I'm installing those bolts, do me a favor and hit that like button down below. It really helps me out a lot when you do. Followed by another inspection, make sure everything is still okay, seated properly. And then using a cross pattern, I'll be tightening down the bracket fully. All that's left at this point is to tighten down the final fittings. I've got the hose clamps in a good position to use the socket to tighten down the screws. Very gently sitting that socket on the screw so I don't rotate the clamp. Once I get enough turns on it, it'll be tight enough that it won't move around. So I'll get this clamp fully tight and then make my way to the next one. And this clamp is too loose, so I'm actually going to tighten the screw with my fingers several turns because it's going to deflect if I try and put the socket on there. But now I've got it tight enough that I could gently get the socket on there. But I'm going to use the socket to actually push it off 1 millimeter or 2 from the end of the connector where I usually like to have it. And then once I have it in position, just a little bit more. Right there. Once I have it in position, then I'll start tightening down this side. I give it a once over, and the hose fittings are now complete. I'll now finish off that rigid connection with the 17. Just have to find a good angle to get on this and give it a turn. It's not there yet. Gonna need a little bit more. That'll do it right there. Well, the connections are now completed. There is, however, some slop here in the service loop of the hose that needs to be addressed. Initially, my thought was I'm just going to loosely fit a cable tie around these two to secure them together. And when I clipped the cable tie and I grabbed the piece that came off the bottom, I realized I'd forgotten there's actually a connector that's used to hold these two together. So we're going to put this one in correctly. So I've cut the cable tie. I'm going to install these hose clamps. And there we go. This portion of the project is now finished. Now, if I was deinstalling this and I had the right piece to start with, this is the order of operations I would have used. First, I would have removed that hose clamp holding the hose onto the rigid pipe. Then I would have loosened this fitting, allowing the accumulator to pivot. The 4 bolts would then be removed along with the bracket. This would then be completely unscrewed, allowing the rigid fitting to be disconnected. The accumulator would then be pulled from the frame this side first, and that hose disconnected. It would then extend far enough from the frame that this hose can be disconnected. Okay, time for a leak check. Camera's on record. I'm at the other side of the car about to short the RPM relay for the fuel pump. And the fuel pump's now running, and I'm going to let this run for about 2 or 3 minutes, but we'll come back and I'll shut it off. No horror stories, but let's take a closer look. Upon close inspection, I do not see any leaks anywhere at any fitting, and that's what we're going for. I'll charge the battery up a bit higher and run the test again, but I'm pretty confident. I'll come back in a few hours, hook up my pressure test set, and find out if this job repaired the issue. Using a towel now, because I expect the fuel to be under pressure. I'm just going to give a slight twist. This should be my first indication of success or failure. There's a twist. Of course, I'm covering it with a rag, but eventually I'll move it under because gasoline's getting all over the manifold. And we take a look, we see that it is just bubbling out under pressure. And this is what I was going for. Still, I think it's done. I did that leak test 2 hours ago. Nope, there's more. Now it should be done. Doesn't matter. I'm going to unscrew it now. As usual, making sure copper washers don't become a permanent fixture of the Valley of Death. Mission accomplished. Put on my pressure test fitting. Connect the hose of the pressure test. And then put the fuel line on the other side of the pressure test. This is all things I've done in the previous videos. I'll lock this side down with a 15 and a 14. Just snugging it tight, not too hard. And we're ready to test. The top corner shows before repair. Shut off the fuel pump and watch it drop and see if all this work was worth it. I'm off by about 4 seconds. And the one on the top right is really dropping. The one on the bottom just stopped at 2.6 and moved no further. Top one's still dropping, and at 30 seconds, which is actually 26, it failed. It's supposed to be 10 minutes holding 1.7 or 1.8 bars. And the repair is still showing 2.6 in and around. 2.5 at 10 minutes. 2.4 at 20. 2.3 at 30. No real change at around 45. And at 1 hour, it just barely dropped even more. 2 hours later, still showing 0.9 bars. I think I'm done with testing. This job was a success. So now it's time to drop the pressure from the system and pack up our test equipment because we're ready to close things up. I do want to point out that on this test, I did use a copper crush washer here on this fitting going into the warm-up regulator as opposed to that rubber ring. I felt that was just a better test. When I do stuff like this, I just can't imagine somebody owning a car like this or a Jetronic system and not having this type of test set to diagnose problems. It's like working blind. I have new bolts and washers and whatnot from the warm-up regulator kit. So now that I'm done, I'm going to put these nice new bolts on. Spruce things up a bit around here. I was also using the old copper crush washers until this testing was completed. So now I'll take the opportunity to put new ones on. I just didn't feel like putting on new ones right before I was about to take it off again to put on this test set. And with that, I get one little piece of shiny new on this engine. And while we did discover that there are some new issues that need to be addressed, we're going to call this tomorrow's problem. This is my preferred and safe way for working under the car, providing enough space to get under without having to have a lift. And I can have the doors open when it's in this position. Again, using my special AMF transmission tool to distribute the pressure that's going to be exerted on the bottom of the frame here. I just want to get this high enough that I could slide out the jack stand. That should be sufficient. And once I decide to slide it out, I'm committed. It's got to come all the way out away from the car, or I could risk damaging it should the jack come down unintentionally. But now I'm bringing it down purposely. All sorts of wonderful creaking noises happen when I do this. But I've done it many times, and I've never damaged the car. That's one side down. And I use these rubber pieces. They're from Harbor Freight for a different jack stand, but they work just fine on these. So I'm not going metal right onto the frame, just like that. The doors are closed, and they have to be closed as I take down one wheel, because it provides for the rigidity of the car. Doing the other side. And once the front wheels come down, then it's okay to open the doors again, even if the back ones are still situated on the ramps. It's just that when one wheel's in the air and one's on the ground, I don't like to have the doors open because it could torsion the car and the doors don't close properly. But now at this point, both front wheels are on the ground. If I choose to do so, I can open the door, no trouble at all. I always cover my seats when I work on the car. I don't plan on it starting happy with all that air in the warm-up regulator and the fuel system, but that's fine. Give it a couple of tries. Eventually it'll purge all that air out. It'll become smooth again. That hole in the warm-up regulator where the air has to push through to purge itself is microscopic, so it does take a bit. In the meantime, I'll get under the car once more and just check for leaks. It's looking good. At this point, all that air is purged out, running smoothly. On the road, doing a test drive, I don't expect the driving performance to change with this repair, although I'm told that some of the oscillations from the fuel pump are dampened as a result of this, improving the driving. But yeah, it's running good. Stopping at an intersection, the idle is absolutely perfect. But fully heated, I shut the car and I walk away for 20 minutes. That way I could turn the car back on and see if it now starts hot without any issues. And it starts just fine. It's important I don't just shut off the engine and immediately turn it back on, because even with the issue, it would have started just fine that way. It's when the pressure drops and in the lines the fuel starts to vaporize that causes those hard start issues. The shifter is still broken because I ran out of time in this video to address it. And my windows aren't closing right, so I'm going to have to address that too. And just as I started recording my closing, in the exact moment, this sticker fell right off. It's lasted long enough, time for a new one. But that concludes this video on the troubleshooting of the accumulator for hot start issues on the Delorean, as well as its subsequent replacement. I hope you found this video enjoyable, entertaining, and informative. Do me a favor, hit that like button down below, helps me out a lot when you do, and hit that subscribe button to be informed of more videos like this when they come out. Again, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.